Hi, everybody. I'm Corey Miller. I'm the author of Hush. I write simply scandalous mystery thrillers, and this is the Indie Author Hour. And my co-host is
I'm Hardy LaBelle. I'm the author of the Video Game Careers series of career guides for aspiring game developers.
awesome. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
So, I don't know. Let's start with news. What's going on with you since last week?
um,
I guess it's
updates. Excuse me. Honestly, what I am still struggling with the thing that I talked about last week, which is changing my funnel so that I'm going to try to include sales or focus more on sales and formatting my book for CreateSpace so that I can actually get a physical printout. Mostly because I think I told everybody in the last show that I was working with a program called Vellum that really helped me make a very pretty version of the sort of combined all 3 volumes of the Video Game Career series into one nice, real pretty book. Oh, there's our pal.
Mm-hmm.
He said hi. It's Steve. Hi, Steve. Welcome back, buddy.
Nothing in my chat. I don't see a chat over here.
Oh, no?
Nuh-uh. Do you have a chat?
I do, yeah.
My chat window is not there. That's weird. Okay, so I won't be able to follow anybody in chat right now because I can't see it.
I'll let you know. Steve says hi.
Hi, Steve.
And good to be here. You may be so I can put questions up if we have to.
Okay.
In any case, thanks for the props. So basically, Vellum likes to output. It's perfectly good at outputting into EPUB format, and if you buy the program, it can spit it out into all sorts of native formats. It can spit it out into Nook and Kindle and e-reader and all sorts of stuff, which is fine. But then what I discovered was that the EPUB format, what I did was I took the EPUB format from Vellum and I put it into Calibre because I wanted to edit it a little bit. I wanted to do some more work on it. Well, the EPUB format from Vellum doesn't like it if you then put it into Calibre and try to change it back into the Word format, which is docx or the .doc format. Mm-hmm. I constantly kept getting all sorts of weird artifacts and editing errors and stuff like that. So it is not super smooth going backwards compatible. Excuse me. So sorry. So I actually sent an email to the Vellum folks, sort of saying, "Hey, what do I do about this?" And they recommended that I output it as rich text, kind of output it as a rich text format document, and then bring it into docx, which is okay as a half step. Unfortunately, it loses all the fancy formatting that Vellum does for you, and it basically just kind of positions the text on screen by tab, which is not really what you want if you're going to then take the document into CreateSpace, because you can do more with Word. So unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on the way you look at it, I've been going through the document and printing it up and kind of getting ready for CreateSpace printing. So that's kind of what I've been busy doing. We also, I had I don't want to bore people with this because it's not author or it's not necessarily author related, but it certainly is indie related. We had a crazy health scare in my family this past week, which took up an awful lot of time. My brother-in-law, crazy story, was taking out the trash. He's a young guy, healthy guy, airline pilot, healthy dude. Was taking out the trash, and he decided he was going to try to make his kid, his little boy, his 2-year-old, laugh by jumping up off of the driveway onto his back porch. Well, he forgot that there was this thin metal bar, across the back of his porch. So he jumped up and cracked his skull. And he didn't actually fracture his skull, but he, tore open his scalp really badly. And then as he fell backwards, he hit his elbow. Well, all right. So, bleeding, had to get 7 stitches across the top of his head, and stitches in his arm. And this is where it gets weird. That was shocking enough because it was, unexpected in the moment of mirth and all that. But then his arm got infected.
Oh,
And over the course of 2 days, all of a sudden his blood pressure dropped, his temperature spiked. He had to get admitted into the intensive care unit just because, for whatever reason, like somehow some bug got into his skin and just it was awful. It was just horrible. So
wow.
we've had I say it's part of the indie thing because indie anything, when you're living your life and trying to integrate your work stuff into it, the I suppose it's not just indie, but anyway, all life, when life pops up and throws those things at you, you have to be able to respond to them. And this is one of those cases where it was suddenly all hands on deck. My wife went over to watch, my sister-in-law's 3 little kids, and we were all trying to kind of coordinate and just help keep their family okay while they were in the hospital. And anyway, so I have not been as single-mindedly productive as I would prefer, but that's going to change this week. I'm going to get this darn stuff. He's better. They actually had to do 2 surgeries on his arm because that was where the infection happened. Exploratory surgeries of going in and flushing out all the potential, infection in his arm, and just crazy. I mean, he might, one of the doctors kind of came back and said he might have to be on intravenous antibiotics for something like, weeks and weeks just to keep him on his feet because, anyway, just crazy. Oh, there's my wife. Do you want to be on camera?
Send some positive energy his way, people.
Yeah. So, just, I don't know. They're on the mend, thank God. But I don't know. It was just one of those times where, honestly, what it made me think, especially in light of, indie publishing or anything else, is you never know what's going to happen in life. You never know. You might as well use every single day as productively as you can, because if without the benefits and intervention of modern medicine, he probably would have died. Mm-hmm. And just from doing something to make his baby his baby boy laugh, doing something as simple as just jumping around in the backyard. I mean, it's just nuts. Mm-hmm. It wasn't not necessarily a high risk behavior, but use your time wisely, ladies and gentlemen. Use each day. Yes, that's right, Steve. Be thankful every day for health and use the time that we have, right? So anyway, sorry, don't mean to be all maudlin and like woo, spooky, but
no, things happen. I too did not have a tremendously productive. I haven't had a tremendously productive couple of weeks at all because it's been a series of illnesses, and so even my kids are they're home today, because both of them because they're sick, and so life happens, and you still have to push on and focus on what you can get done in the day. Yesterday, all I did was take care of the sick kids, run to the doctor, and do a podcast. I had to record and edit a podcast yesterday, and that's pretty much what I got accomplished yesterday.
Hey, podcast that's way more than 0. Although I was really thrilled for your news about Back Porch Writer and the high profile guest you're going to get.
Oh,
perhaps
yes.
you'd like to share that news with our audience.
That is going to be on April 12th. Honorée Corder is Corder, right? I'm saying it right. Yeah. Yep. She's coming to Back Porch Writer on April 12th. And that's really cool because, because I have a new scheduling system that I use called Calendly, people aren't connecting with me directly necessarily. They're going to the website, which is exactly what I want them to do, and then scheduling. And so I get a notice saying so-and-so scheduled such and such day. And I got this notice and it had her name. And I went, that name looks really familiar. And of course, she has a Facebook group called Prosperity for Writers. It's Prosperity for Writers, right? Not authors. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's how we connected. And it was because I was posting in different Facebook groups that from now on the Back Porch Writer program, if you've got a book that you're launching or a new version of your book, I had a guy named Will who he just did an audio version of his book. And he wanted people to know about it. So I said, oh, cool. I will announce it live on the show. So I'm doing that every Tuesday. If you get a hold of me, a week before, then I'll include your information. And I put it in the write-up right on Blog Talk Radio. So whenever someone pulls that up and is actually looking on their computer, they'll also see it there. So it's not just audio, it's visual in that regard. And So yeah, I had like a couple people today, but that's how that happened. Was I was posting that information in her Prosperity for Writers Facebook group, and then she has an assistant, and her assistant scheduled her on the program. So April 12th, honorary quarter. She writes Prosperity for Writers, but she's got other books too. I'm not as familiar with her other books. Are you, Hardy?
Well, her other stuff is very sort of divorce related, so I don't know as much about that. But the thing about Honore is that she has the sort of indie. I mean, she's kind of one of my author crushes, if you want to call it that, because she's got the whole indie business thing just locked in. Mm-hmm. She writes. I mean, there's a whole world of things out there, but one of the things that really sort of attracted me to join her group in the first place was I heard her on a podcast. She was talking about one of her books called "If Divorce is a Game, These Are the Rules." And I guess she's a divorcee herself, and she wrote this book as a guideline for kind of how to conduct yourself in divorce and how to handle the challenges and things like that. And what I think is absolutely fascinating is that, she sells that book, but she also sells it in bulk to law offices, mm-hmm. Where she offers to do kind of a vanity print run of the books to law offices where they'll buy it in bulk. And then on the inside front cover, they'll put their information. They'll put the information for the law office saying, look, if you're considering divorce or you're going to go through this process, get in touch, blah, 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 all the rest of that type of stuff, which it just blows my mind. It's like, wow, that is, talk about hustling, talk about seeing a market opportunity and mm-hmm. finding a way to, kind of maximize that and, put your product out there. And I could just imagine, I mean, what law office wouldn't want to have a handy guide, mm-hmm. that with good information that you could put into the hands of a client or potential client. I don't know. It just seems super smart. And then I know she does kind of productivity training for people. So she's got a whole automated series of, seminar or, kind of webinars with this online certification system that's all, it's all evergreen, automated. I mean, whatever. She's just got all that stuff locked down, and she just keeps marching forward, kind of conquering the world in her area. And so for me, because I could barely find my hat with both hands and a flashlight, it's like, wow, she's so cool. And it just blows my mind what she could do. But she's very patient about allowing me to be in her writer's prosperity group, which is great. I'm like, well, today I managed to tie my shoes. Today I managed to go, I put on pants. That's a win.
Like that.
No, I'd like to believe that.
I didn't see her. Sorry. I heard her on, the reason I knew her name was I heard her on the Sell More Books show. And she did talk about all that, the law thing. And I had forgotten that she'd done that she put in. I remember thinking at the time, that's brilliant. That's mm-hmm. really a fabulous idea. Mm-hmm. Someone needs to feel that. Someone else who does nonfiction, think from that perspective, because that's a really brilliant idea. So honorary quarter on Back Porch Writer, April 12th. There you go. You'll want to listen. She's got a lot to share.
She's got a lot to share. And you're going to squeeze every last drop out of her, every little bit of information, I'm sure.
Well, and I like, one of the reasons why I joined that group, and I mentioned this on Back Porch Writer just a little bit ago, the show that just aired at 9:30 this morning, that I join groups that are going to help me move in the direction I want to be going, whatever those groups may be. And the minute I realize that they're not moving in that direction, we're not on the same page, I just get out of the group. I don't waste my time anymore in the group, because it's a time suck. And so I joined mm-hmm. her group because I thought these are going to be some like-minded people. They've got the same sort of mentality of, I want to prosper, I want to move this direction. And so I haven't been too active in it yet. I mean, I think I did that just last week that I joined that group. So,
well, and I think I told you by chat too that Honore basically opened up invitations. She said, let's try to push the membership up. Mm-hmm. And are there any any authors that you'd like to invite? And I was right in the act of inviting you, and somebody else invited you. And I was like, oh, man.
like,
somebody beat me to it.
Let me see what this is all about. I joined a couple other groups too. I joined a couple that are specific to thriller writing, mystery writing. One that you told me about, I can't remember the name of the group now, because there's a couple that are very similarly named. And so there was one that was mystery thrillers and stuff. And then I posted the same information in all those groups. Hey, get in touch if you've got a book you want to promote, because I will help you do it. That's why I do this.
Going back to the Facebook thing, I am considering launching a Facebook group myself. As a continuing kind of tally of how that's all going. So I actually decreased the spend, just to go back to my mailing list and how that's going and stuff like that. I decreased the spend on my funnel, just so I'm spending less on advertising, but I'm up to 1,100 people anyway on my, kind of on my mailing list. It's continuing to grow super fast. So that's awesome. Mm-hmm. And it got me to thinking that, maybe what I should do is maybe I should start a Facebook group, but I want to, I don't know. I've learned some lessons being part of these Facebook groups. You're sort of talking about being a part of Honoree's group. The only reason I'm a part of her group, I don't necessarily feel like I'm offering anything to the people that are in there. I mean, I'm whatever. But I find it very inspiring. I don't want to necessarily talk too much about that, but I find it inspiring to be a part of that. Honoree is very careful, or I don't know if you want to say careful, but anyway, every day she's like, are you hitting your goals? Are you, pushing the boundaries? Or what do you want to try to achieve today? Every day, several times a day, there are posts about what did you achieve? How's it going? And she puts up stuff about what she's accomplishing, books that she's publishing and stuff like that. And to be honest, it's just super inspirational for me to lurk in a group like that and kind of watch that all go by and be like, I don't know, what did I accomplish today? Oh, I managed to put on pants. I'm not going to share that with the Facebook group, but maybe I could do better than pants. Maybe I could take this even further. What else could I possibly do? And so, I get a lot out of that Facebook group. You and I originally met because we were in Brian Cohen's Selling for Authors Facebook group. And to be honest, and this is going to sound really mean, Steve says, lurking is good. Stage 1 of connection. Yeah. Well, Steve, I'm not shy about blurting in. He says you don't necessarily want to come in and, just blurt out, your presence or whatever. I'm not shy about if I'm a part of a group and I got something to say. I'm not at all shy about sharing my thoughts. Mm-hmm. I try not to be rude about it, but someone did comment at one point that my comments tend to be very, I'm always trying to be helpful. I don't try to be extra politic. My wife has told me several times that the best way to give negative feedback is the sandwich method. You pay someone a compliment, and then you say something critical, and then you pay them another compliment. Mm-hmm. I don't sandwich my comments. I never sandwiched in my critical feedback in my life, not even once. I'll pay compliments when when I feel like people are deserving of them, and I'm not shy about that. But the idea of giving someone feedback in a way that's going to sort of soften the blow, I just never, it's just not my way. Anyway, I don't know how we got, right. So we're talking about groups. So here's the thing. Brian Cohen's Selling for Authors group, with the theory being you're going to get in there and kind of critique each other's selling stuff, like critique each other's
your blurbs and
things like that.
Stuff. Yeah.
For a while, you will remember this. At least I hope you do. Anyway, I was flying around like a crazy person. Every single person in the group would say, "Please help me with my blurb." And I prided myself on helping everybody. I was like, okay, I'm going to help you with your blurb. I want to try to tighten this up and do that. And I learned two things. Number one, not everybody was doing that, right? In fact, I was in the very rare exception of people who were putting up revisions, number one. And number two, even if I revise for people, based on the principles that, Brian articulated, or, based on the things that I thought were going to make it better, people didn't necessarily, they didn't necessarily want my revisions. Like there were a bunch of times where people were like, well, it's very interesting that you said that, I should change this, but I'm not going to change it. As a matter of fact, somebody posted today some description for some fantasy series, and I won't say the name of the author nor the series, but this is a dude who has posted a couple of times now, sort of saying, could you help me with my blurb? And every single time I have, gone through and I sort of tried to tighten it up and make it more resonant, stuff like that. And he said, oh, I'm still not really sure what to do. And I've even suggested different, things to try to make his blurb writing more interesting, different exercises. And looking at marketing, Steve says, critiquing someone else's blurb, hope people involved are looking at the marketing numbers over opinion. Yes, Steve, absolutely. I think you want to drive that as much as you can by data. But of course you've got to have a place to start. You need to have a place to start with something before you can even really start collecting data. But absolutely, A/B testing and driving that is the best possible way forward. Anyway, let me just finish this thought, which is, so this guy, he's been talking about the same series now for probably 2 months, and he's getting ready to launch it and stuff. He said, okay, well, based on everybody's feedback, here's my newest blurb. Honest to God, it is the same boring shit that he has written several times. And what I could tell you is that he is super in love with his little world. He's in love with the, 300 years ago, there was a magical blah, 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 and they found a thing, and this person hated that guy, and blah, 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 blah. Oh, my God. And to me, it is as boring as shit. And I'm done. I'm done trying to say, hey, brother, I don't really want to read your book because I don't really want to read your blurb because it's boring. I mean, that's the God's honest truth of it. It just bores the shit out of me. And I've tried any number of times to try to say, hey, maybe you could punch this up. Maybe you could make the language more dynamic. Maybe you could shorten this. Maybe you could add some more punch. Maybe think of it more like a sales thing. I'm just whatever. And I extrapolate out of that kind of the whole thing about selling for authors, which is I'm not getting anything out of selling for authors as a group. I'm not. For a while, I thought I was, and I was enjoying what I felt like was the community of, kind of people that was there. But as a group, I don't feel like it's helping me at all. So it came out of my favorites list. I'm kind of pushing it down because I don't know, like it ain't helping me. So I'm moving on. And the reason I'm rambling about all this is just because I would like to launch a Facebook group, but I don't want it to feel like that. I don't want it to feel like, I don't know. I don't want it to feel that way. I'd like it to be, positive and valuable. And I want to think about how to do that. The other thing that's interesting, sorry, now I'm in verbal diarrhea.
But what would your Facebook group be about? Would it be your book stuff or something just different?
Well, what I would like it to be about, I don't know. That's a good question. Steve says, Raised by Bears, I think you hit the nail on the head. These groups of forums are useful for a particular stage in your life. If you move on, they generally haven't. And so it's time for a new group. Amen, brother. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really true. One of the things, it's funny you should say that, Steve, because an awful lot of the e-courses that I've been a part of have two groups. They have the, you didn't sign up for the class, you're just sort of interested and you want to get in and talk about it. And then they have the other group, which is you did sign up for the class and, you're kind of carrying whatever. You've learned the material, you're discussing the material, you're trying to implement the material in a more meaningful way. Maybe that distinction is actually, as I'm saying that out loud, I found myself thinking, maybe I don't want two groups. Maybe I only want one group, because in terms of time and energy, it is very one of the reasons why Selling for Authors, in my humble opinion, doesn't really work for me anymore, and is because Brian Cohen doesn't spend a lot of time there. You know, he kind of loops in like once every, I don't know, maybe once a week. He'll kind of go through, he'll collect feedback, you know, he'll reply to, you know, people's threads here and there, but he's not really present all that often. I mean, like I say, about once a week, I notice that he goes through and replies, but it's not every day. Certainly not, you know, multiple times a day. And I could say that reliably because that was me. I was the guy who was every hour like, ooh, somebody posted in Selling for Authors. I better, you know, help them with their book blurb or whatever the schnabs, you know, whatever it was. And I kept thinking, okay, Brian's going to jump in here and he's going to say something really smart. He's going to tell him, you know, how to punch this up. Well, that wasn't happening. And so if you're not putting that kind of time and energy into the group, you know, if you're not, if you are the person who founded the group and you're not, I don't know, adding the value, you're not adding the dynamism or whatever, I think the group can really stagnate. I think it could die. Steve's going to have some dinner.
Hi, Steve.
Tell your wife we said hi. Tell her thank you for cooking you dinner all the time. Anyway, sorry. So I don't know. I'm just trying to think about, you're asking me kind of what would I do a Facebook group about? It's possible, right, that I could have kind of the basic group of, oh, did you read the books? Are you interested in doing something? You know, I could kind of be a presence there. And then if people eventually, if I, you know, when I publish this class, if people take the class, then they could come into a class Facebook group. I don't know. I just find the prospect of trying to provide energy and, you know, feedback and stuff for two different Facebook groups to be, I don't know, maybe that's just too much, but maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't need to work that hard. Maybe if people jump into the first Facebook group, you know, maybe you don't have to necessarily put as much energy into the basic level group. Maybe you just spend your time focusing on the second level group, depending on if they buy, you know, depending if they actually, you know, if they convert into sales. I don't know. What do you have some thoughts about that? I mean, you're a Facebook person.
Well, we sort of talked about the two groups before, and I kind of feel like having started groups myself and try to keep them going, it's exhausting just doing one. It's exhausting doing that. So I can't imagine doing two separate ones for basically the same topic. So from my perspective, if I were going to do it again, I probably would do a single Facebook group and put my energy into that group, regardless of whether or not these were people who already paid for whatever it was that I was doing, or they were interested. I would just treat them all the same way and have them in this group because they can all benefit from each other. And if they're sharing the information, I mean, if you've got a couple people in the group who have taken your course and they're sharing that information in this group with people who haven't, that can motivate those people to take the course. That's the benefit there, I think. And so I guess I would stick with one, and for those reasons, is that it's exhausting and it'd be easier to maintain if you did it all in one. I don't know. Okay, when someone has two groups, it's that 80-20 rule, I guess. So maybe they don't want to expend too much energy in that group that isn't really buying yet or whatever. Maybe that's the perspective. But I just don't share that perspective. I think I'm going to spend as much time, just put them all together and make that work for everybody because they'll benefit from each other. That's just the way I would do it.
I agree with that. I think it's in Mark Dawson's, you know, Facebook advertising class. One thing that I noticed was that, you know, if thank you, baby. My wife just brought me the power cable for my computer because I'm running out of juice. Hang on a second. I'm just gonna plug in and then I'll be right back.
Okay, he's gonna plug in. He'll be right back. So I'll just talk about something else for a little bit. I was talking about Pygmalion effect on the Womanly Art of Self-Defense. That was the episode that dropped yesterday. So I was talking about Pygmalion effect, Galatea effect, and the Gollum effect, and how that is important in your life. self-defense person, but just generally speaking, how that's important in your life. So if you're curious about those things, a lot of us are familiar, I think, with Pygmalion effect. But if you're curious about those three things and how they impact or can impact your life, go check out the Womanly Art of Self-Defense.com, episode number 7 that dropped yesterday. That would have been the 15th of February that it was available. I got it all recorded yesterday. It was a busy day yesterday. That was the only thing I was able to truly accomplish from a business perspective yesterday for a variety of reasons, but I got that podcast done. I was very excited. And I love talking about Pygmalion effect. I talked about it a little bit this morning on the Back Porch Writer program as well, so you can check that out over there. And I talked about willpower just a little bit. Willpower is one of the things I'll be talking about on the Womanly Art of Self-Defense, probably in the next episode. So episode 8, I will be talking about the willpower, superpower willpower. Say that a couple times really fast. Superpower, willpower, superpower, willpower. At any rate, I'll be talking about willpower and how you can get more willpower because it is something like a muscle and it can get depleted and tired and everything else. So that'll be on the Womanly Art of Self-Defense probably next week for episode 8. Are you back?
Do you see? Yes, I'm back. Do you see there's a question from Naomi saying...
I can't see any questions.
Okay, she says, what is the Pygmalion effect? Here, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go, boop.
Sorry, my chat is not open, so I can't see the questions. So sorry. So Hardy's going to have to do that for me. The Pygmalion effect essentially is how other people, someone of influence, a leader in your life, whether that's a supervisor, a mentor, whatever, their expectations for you, their high expectations for you, have an effect, direct effect on your interpretation of expectations for yourself. And you will, in fact, perform better because they have high expectations for you. This is a management technique. It's been used and researched for many, many years. If you've ever, and there's lots of examples of Pygmalion. In fact, if you've ever looked at one of my favorite musicals is My Fair Lady, and it's also based on the show Pygmalion. But My Fair Lady, you have Henry Higgins, who finds this common gutter snipe, Liza, and brings her into his home and teaches her the proper English language, and then dresses her accordingly because he's by God going to make her a duchess. He's going to make everyone believe that she is a lady. And that is what his expectation is of her. That's the way he treats her. That's the way he interacts with her. And that is what she becomes. She starts to develop that for herself. And in fact, by the end, she realizes she can't go back to being a common gutter snipe. It's not a world that she belongs to anymore. And so that's a classic example of Pygmalion effect, but there are tons of examples of Pygmalion effect out in the world and in movies and things like that. So hopefully that answered your question.
I think it does.
You can listen.
Isn't that interesting?
Selfdefense.com and find out more. Go on.
Oh, it's interesting because that's I found the same thing. I used to teach classes. You know, I taught classes in game development for a while, and that's exactly what I always found was that I'd get, kids who kind of walked in there thinking, oh, I'm just going to hang around and play video games. And that really wasn't what we were doing at all. I really expected that people were going to learn the material and engage with it in this really rigorous way. And they did awesome stuff. I mean, just amazing things. And I don't know. I think that the Pygmalion effect it's so real. If someone believes Absolutely that you can do something, you find a way to achieve that. It's just amazing. I think it's anyway.
Real. The other two effects that I mentioned that I talk about on Womanly Art podcast episode 7 was the Gollum effect and the Galatea effect, because the Gollum effect is the direct opposite of Pygmalion. It's when someone has a lower expectation of you, someone of influence, someone you perceive as a leader, a mentor, whatever, has a lower expectation of you, and then you don't perform well. You'll meet that low standard. Essentially, if they set the bar here, down here, that's where you're gonna go. And so for me, in my life, it's always about setting the bar really, really high, and I do it with people I interact with. I mean, the group thing is an example. The face group thing is a pretty simple example. If you're in that group and you're not up here at this level where I'm expecting you to be, I'm out because I have other things to do, and the other things are important to me. And that sort of leads to the Galatea effect, because Galatea effect is positively or negatively your expectations for yourself without regard to anyone else influencing you what are your expectations for yourself? And if you generally have low expectations for yourself, you're going to hit that bar every single time, you know? So it's important. And there's a lot of research to support all three of these different effects. A lot of scientific research, psychological research. You can go out and you can find all of it because it's been used, like I said, now in management techniques and all of that for a very long time. But I really just to get what you expect.
So just to clarify, the second one is the Golem, like Gollum from Lord of the Rings?
Golem, Golem effect.
Oh, Golem. Okay, all right.
Or Golem effect. Golem. So that's the direct opposite of Pygmalion because it's lower expectations. An example would be, and I gave this example in my show yesterday. There was a kid that was in my son's kindergarten class, and keep in mind kindergarten, so he was 5 or 6 years old, and the perception that many adults and teachers in his life had of this kid was that he was a problem child, that he had all kinds of issues. Now keep in mind kindergarten, right? And he was already being labeled as this problem kid. And I was getting reports from my son about this and this kid, and he's mean, he's this, that, and the other thing. And I said, you know what? You need to be friends with this kid. You need to bring him into your circle as a good friend. Just do that. And so my son did that. To this day, they are friends, even though he has moved away. And even though they switched schools when he was still living here, he was invited to our house every Halloween for our major Halloween party, and birthday parties and things like that. But back in kindergarten, I had him over for a party, and I can't remember what our party was, Halloween or birthday. And all the kids were outside, and we have fallen limbs periodically because we're in the country. And he picked one up, and it was basically a branch that he was dragging across the back. And the adults on the deck were sort of panicked and worried. What's he going to do? What's he going to do? Because they're worried he's going to take it and hit the kid, another kid or whatever. And I just looked at the kid and I said his name, and they had been yelling at him. I said, and they didn't listen, by the way. They were yelling at him and he wasn't listening. I said his name and I said, hey, can you do me a favor? He said, what? I said, how about you take that over to my burn pile for me? That'd be awesome. Can you help me out? And that's exactly what he did. And it's because my expectation was that he wasn't going to do anything with it other than drag it around. And the expectations that you put out there, they can be, detrimental to other people and really a disservice to how others will interact with them. So I'm super careful about that sort of thing. I don't like it, for example, when people tell me their opinion about another person that I haven't actually interacted with, drives me nuts. Because I don't want that. I don't want you setting that up for me. Unless I'm going to be in danger, you don't need to set it up for me. I can figure out for myself if that person is a good person to be in my life. And so that's something that I try and impart on with my kids is you have to make these decisions, because if you allow someone else to do it, you're doing a disservice to that person. They may be nothing like what they're being described as, like this kid. He's a good kid, but he's being described that way. And it was wrong. It was absolutely wrong. So that's how those effects can come into play. So there's my serious, boom, done. Pygmalion effect, Golem effect, Galatea.
Very interesting.
I have a psychology degree. That's my background.
That's fascinating. That's awesome.
I like psychology.
Well, so let's just loop back to the Facebook thing for 1 second. So let me ask you this. I mean, you've talked a little bit about thinking about classes and stuff. Mm-hmm. Would it worry you to only have one Facebook group if you knew that people might take your class and then take the information back into that group? I mean, do you feel like you'd be losing sales or losing anything?
No, I don't. And part of the reason is because it's kind of like, think about it like us, the two of us. You took the Facebook for Selling course, right? I did the free stuff. All the free stuff that he put out, I did look at and I paid attention to because he didn't have the class available yet. So I looked at the free stuff. When the class became available, you took the class. I didn't take the class because I didn't want to spend that level of money right then on that class. That just wasn't going to work for me. And it's now taken me at least twice as long to get through all the Facebook stuff and figure out how to do this stuff. And I needed your help on top of it to do it. But it hasn't stopped me from looking at that class. I'm still thinking about taking the class because I know you can only tell me so much. You're not going to remember every little detail in all those different videos and all of that. So it's something I'm still thinking about. It's just that it's $500 and some odd. I don't want to spend $500 and some odd right now. So I haven't completely ruled out the class. I think it's actually a well done, worthwhile class. His class. We're talking about the selling for the Facebook ad class. Is it Selling for Authors? What's the name of that class?
No, it's
self-publishing formula. The self-publishing. The self-publishing formula, it's still in the back of my head. And I think that's how some people are. They're like me, where I can't spend the money on that right now. That's just not going to be a priority. But if I can get a little information here and there, I'm going to like that. And that's going to help me. And I'm still going to think about taking the class when I can take the class. That's the reality. And I should mention that he's got a podcast that he launched or is about to launch. And I'm really intrigued by that. Did you know, did he actually launch it yet? The self-publishing formula podcast? I don't even know if he's calling it that.
Actually. I saw he put something up in the group about the podcast. I am currently fighting a one-man war against podcast apps on my phone. All right, just a quick rant. Sorry, I apologize. Today's my day for crazy rants. I'm a crazy old man today. I'm like, where are these kids today with their technology? They're bothering me.
Are you feeling old today, Artie?
No, just cranky. Honestly, I'm just cranky. I'm not particularly old, just crotchety. So here's the thing. What I want is an app. My phone is it's one of my most precious possessions. I love it. It was a Christmas present. I had the crappiest phone in the family for years, and then as a surprise, the family all bought me my fancy iPhone 6, which I love, 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 and I use it all the time. It is chock full of apps, data, pictures, all of my OneNote, whatever, mind maps for books. It is full of data. My problem is that when I sign up for some dumb podcast, the apps as soon as I listen to one podcast, they're like, oh, let's grab them all. Let's jam them in there. So as soon as I start doing that, I run out of data really fast. Mm-hmm. And at one point, I couldn't take any pictures. I couldn't receive documents by text. And I'm thinking, what on earth is wrong with my beloved phone? Well, it turns out it's the dumb podcast apps. So I am looking for a podcast app that will do two things. One, that it will only download one podcast at a time. And two, it will start at the beginning and then just incrementally add the next podcast after I listen to the one that I want. That's it. That's all I want. I don't need any other of the fancy crap that they put in these podcasting apps. I just want to be able to plug my phone in when I'm in the car and just listen to the podcast that I've subscribed to sequentially in order, And honest I cannot find that.
What podcast apps are you using, or have you tried?
Oh, I tried Apple's podcast. Oh my goodness. I tried Apple's. Most recently, I think I deleted it actually. I used something called Overcast.
Oh, I mentioned that one because it was from
I don't know. I honestly, I've tried a few. I mean, what'll happen is
you have Stitcher. You can't use Stitcher?
Stitcher. I don't know. I'll try it.
I mean, but here's the thing about Stitcher. You have to make sure that you log out. So you're listening to your podcast, right, that you want to listen to. When you're finished, make sure you log out because it'll drain the battery. That's what it does on my phone. It'll drain my battery on my phone. But it doesn't download any episodes. It just, I listen to the episode I want to listen to and then I move on. But
do you have to manually download the episodes you want? Or will it just, once you listen to an episode?
I click on my Stitcher app, it opens things up, and then I click on the things I want to listen to, like one thing at a time. I'm like, I do this every day. And then I just make sure I log out so it doesn't drain my battery. But I don't have any of the problems you're describing at all. That was the only issue, was the battery thing. But when I tried Podcast Addict, it did what you're describing. It would download a bunch of episodes, but it's not the ones I wanted to listen to. And so I still haven't figured out Podcast Addict, so I'm not really using it. It's on my phone, but I don't use it. But Stitcher I use every day. And just make sure
I'll try Stitcher. Maybe it'll cure my old man blues, because I tell you what, it is so frustrating. It is as if the people who design these apps are thinking more about how the people who make podcasts would want people to consume their content rather than how people probably do. I think it's very rare that anybody goes and wants to download 70 episodes of whatever and have it all, in their back pocket so that they can listen to it all the time. At least I mean, that's certainly not the way I would ever use it. Unless I was going to go, I don't know, hiking or something, well, I've never gone hiking in my life, so maybe I should pick
that example.
Maybe, I can't think of any example. That's just not my way. But anyway, you know what I'm saying.
Long car ride, like a trip.
Yeah, okay, sure. A long car ride. Yes, I was going to take a plane trip to Australia. You bet. Then maybe I would want to download a whole bunch of stuff and kind of have it on tap. But short of that, I don't want them taking up all the space on my device. And I also don't want to manage a list. That's absolutely, sitting there and sort of saying, well, what episode was I on? Do I remember them talking about this or do I not remember? Oh, my goodness. No, thanks. Isn't that what computers are good for? Keeping track of what you learned? Holy cats. Just, boop, you listen to this one, dummy. Now we're going to listen to the next one. Boop, boop, boop.
So this is me opening my Stitcher. You can't really see it very well, but at the top it says available offline, and I have that turned off. So that's probably why I'm not getting all the download stuff. So that's turned off. I have, I just did this recently. I used to have just a favorite playlist because I would just find podcasts and would automatically go there. And I wasn't really paying attention to that until like a week ago. I went, oh, I could create different playlists. I didn't realize I could do that. So now I have all these different playlists, and I find podcasts that go in specifically to these playlists. So I just open up that playlist, decide which one I want to listen to it. And then I said, like, log off so it doesn't eat up my battery. And then it's done. But I do have it set to be off for, so that apparently it's not downloading stuff automatically. Good. But I couldn't, the other one wasn't as user-friendly for me, the Podcast Addict, which is why I haven't bothered with it a whole lot. Stitcher's really simple. You can go to Stitcher on the computer and add podcasts that way too. So you're not just doing it on your phone.
Well, fair warning. The crotchety old man he's going to download that technology today. He's going to come back with a full report. So give you a heads up. I
haven't had any issues with Stitcher. Other when I had the battery thing, and then I realized I wasn't logging out, and I was like, oh, that's what's killing my battery, and didn't log out of that particular program.
All right.
So I
better work the way you say.
Oh my God, that looks like the TARDIS. Okay, so I'm looking at my my graphic designer. He and I have been going back and forth about the Deadly Sins 3 cover. Okay, and now the latest rendition that he sent me has it has a gun on it that I like. I like this image, and then he put a blue like window behind it. I don't know if you can see this. Can you see that?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So my first reaction was, what? Oh my God, that looks like the TARDIS from Doctor Who. So it probably shouldn't be blue. What I'm thinking. That probably is not the best choice for my cover if I'm going to have people thinking TARDIS. So there you have it. That's what we're working from right now. Is this
a little teaser on the? Yeah. Well, see. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure you could probably put some white streaking on there or something to kind of make it look like a shiny window.
There's a little bit of that, but I think there's probably not enough. If that's my initial reaction, is it looks like the TARDIS. But I'm trying to get it simplified. The cover that he did originally, and this is completely my fault, it was way too busy, had too much going on. And so then I said, I need to go look at more short story mystery thriller covers. And so I did that. And I said, we just need to come back to what we did originally, which was more of a dominant image and then a faded sort of image behind or something like that. And so that's what we're trying to get to at this point, because I liked the smoking gun image, but now there needs to be something else there, like background sort of thing there. And so that's what he's working on right now. But yeah, he got really busy. And so now all of a sudden he's able to focus on this with me, and I'm going back and forth and back and forth. But my last email this morning was, so are you working on North Downing yet? Because he's still working on DS3. I'm like, dude, I'm on a North Downing now. So let's just move on.
Let's go, man. Come on. Hit the gas. Let's go.
And I have no idea what to do for that cover. Yeah, I have no ideas for that cover, because as you pointed out, the North Downing thing could be, the name itself could be confusing. So the cover really needs to communicate that it's mystery thriller and fits that genre, because the name itself won't do that. The name, like you said, it makes you think of like Downton Abbey or something like that. And so I've got to make sure that the cover really supports the mystery thriller genre, but I just don't know what to put on it yet. I have zero ideas. I'm kind of hoping he has some ideas. And then he can do it, without me a little bit.
I'm assuming it's an address, right?
Yeah, it's the address of someone.
Yeah. I mean, I could sort of see like a lonely street corner with a street lamp and like a signpost, and maybe there's a
I like that idea. How come I couldn't think of that? I mean, geez. I like that idea. Okay. Street corner. I had to write this down or I'm going to forget. Lamp post. Okay, that's at least something to go on. And then he'll come up with something to add to it. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Be like a pool of light and some blood in the pool of light. And you could see on the street sign it says North Downing. I mean,
something like that. Yeah, that's good. That's good. What happens in that house is a whole family is murdered in the house. That's actually what happens. I can tell you that part.
Gotcha.
It's unfortunate, but it's true. That's what happens.
If only there was some sort of spunky, weapons-loving female private eye who could look into that.
I know, right?
Find out what was behind this horrible murder.
I know. If only there was someone. Oh wait, Desiree Jackson. I think she might be the one.
I hope you're right. I hope she's available to take this case. I know Des could straighten it out. No That's question.
Awesome. So, I want to bring this back around to the blurb thing because you mentioned helping people with blurbs. When you first tried to help me with my blurb in that group, my reaction wasn't a negative reaction, but it was more like, well, that's pretty cool. I'm not going to use it yet. That was my reaction to you. I'm not going to use it yet. And it was because I had just written my blurb that I had up. And I was like, no, I have to see if it actually works before I take it down. I literally had just put it up. So I'm not going to change it yet. I have to wait. So now I'm looking at it again. So I may do some updates on the blurb now. I finished that book, Write, Rinse, Repeat. I don't know, something like that. It's the self-publishing podcast people. They put out this book a couple years back.
Write, Publish, Repeat. Yeah.
Write, Publish, Repeat. Thank you. Write, Rinse, Repeat. I was close. But anyway, I just finished the book and it had a lot of useful information in it and simple stuff, when you think about it, but I wasn't thinking about it at the time. So like right now I'm thinking I have to go back to my different EPUB versions. And because here I'm wondering, why is my email list suffering so much? It's not just because it's taken me a while to figure out the Facebook ad thing. It's also because I'm not actually really taking in full advantage of how to do the CTAs in my books. And so I need to go back and look at those. And they even said, make them specific to the platform you're putting them on, which I wasn't even thinking about, And so I've got to go back and reassess some of that for the different books that I have. And, because I've been struggling with, why can't I get any sales on Kobo? I've got my books listed at Kobo. Why don't they ever sell? I expect they're not doing well on Nook. Okay, fine. But I upload to Kobo directly and I've had 0 sales on Kobo.
Does anybody buy books on Kobo? I don't think I've ever heard of such a thing.
Other people buy books on Kobo. Joanna Penn sells a lot of books on Kobo. Those guys, self-publishing podcast people, lots of books on Kobo.
No. That's not true. Nobody buys books on Kobo. Everybody wants the free books on Kobo. At least that's what I want. I'm like, ooh, Kobo's good for downloading free books. I'm going to do that. Woohoo!
Well, what I've learned is that apparently they're really good for box sets. That's what Joanna Penn says. That's what self-publishing podcast guys said. So there's been other authors who say that it's definitely good for that. But the bottom line is I've had 0 sales on Kobo, and I really am trying to crack that nut. I'm trying to figure out how I can make that different. And part of this is the CTAs. Maybe I need to do what they're saying and make it more specific to the platform. I did put Kobo as a link on my website at one point, but then I started cleaning up my website and took out a lot of that stuff that was in my near the bottom footer area because it was just too cluttered and I didn't like that. So I took some of that stuff out. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out how I can get more sales on some other platforms besides Amazon. It's not like I do a ton of sales on Amazon, but that is where all my sales are. It's on Amazon. Yeah. So it'd be nice to do it somewhere else.
I think dedicated CTAs, I think honestly advertising specifically for the different platforms would make sense as well. So, and I actually probably should think about this a little bit, but now that I'm trying to change my funnel over so that it's going to be more about sales and less about just trying to drive people to my mailing list, I think actually advertising specifically with links to Kobo, specifically with links to Nook, and using that as an interest, for potential readers would be a way to start building up, kind of more of a presence on those platforms.
Right.
I would be surprised if it wasn't possible to just have, a Facebook ad targeted specifically for people on Kobo. If people have liked Kobo, chances are if you liked it on Facebook, chances are pretty good you're a dedicated Kobo fan. You like their platform, you like their whole, whatever, you like their whole biz. And so you're much more likely to buy there than you would be if you just happen to see kind of a book, like a book thing go by. So I think that would be a way too. I mean, I'm sure that Kobo has the same kind of targeting algorithms not exactly the same, obviously, but similar to Amazon or Google or anybody else. Kobo is a search engine, right? So you need anyone who wants to sell on that platform needs to be able to raise their profile. You need to be able to raise awareness of the book and kind of raise its profile on the platform. So that would be a part of it too. Getting reviews, getting sales, on the platform is probably part of it is probably advertising on the platform and just raising your profile so that you factor more highly into their search algorithms, I suspect. The thing about Joanna Penn and some of those other people is that they're, they can get sales on any old platform because they're on any sales platform because they're so well known. They have so many followers throughout the world that if Joanna Penn says, "Oh, I just launched a new book," if you're a Kobo fan, you're going to go buy her thing because you know who Joanna Penn is and you're going to buy it on Kobo. I'm not dismissing it by any means. I'm not saying you're wrong or anything like that. I'm just saying it's the same. I think it's the same, the same process of building awareness on any particular e-retailer as it would be for Amazon. You need reviews. You need anything that's going to kind of help raise the profile so that it more people, become aware of it and see it more. Yeah, I like the idea of changing CTAs. Right now, all my stuff is not on Kobo because I went into Amazon. What is it? Select Amazon,
KDP
whatever that
Select.
is. Yeah, KDP Select. I'm done with that. I'm bailing out of that. As soon as I actually went through, when you sign up for KDP Select, it'll automatically renew itself. It's set to kind of automatically renew.
Yeah.
I went through all my books and said, don't automatically renew. I want to come out of it. I found my ranking dropping in KDP Select as opposed to where I was, which was very high up in the free books. I was top 10, sometimes even top 5, kind of in the free books on Amazon, and now my ranking is tumbling down just because I don't know. I don't have as much awareness on KDP Select, so I'm done with that. I'm out. I want to go back into the free.
I'm out. I think I still have my children's book in KDP Select, but it doesn't do anything. But I don't have any other children's books out, so I figured I'll just leave it there. I don't care. I'll leave it there for now until I do another one.
The thing about it is that KDP Select seems to make the most sense if you've got a lot of pages because you're getting paid by page.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't imagine that there's enough pages in your children's book to necessarily make it worthwhile. You'd have to get a heck of a lot of page views.
That's probably very true. I just don't want to deal with it right now because it's not a priority. Seriously? That's it. It's not a priority.
I get that.
Like, when I need to
fix though. All you got to do is just go in there and just tell it not to auto renew. It's not a hard fix.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to spend time on it yet, but I will. When I do my next children's book, I'll start looking at all that stuff again and changing things around because I have them written. I don't have illustrations. That's the only thing. That's why they're not my focus right now. I don't have Illustrator to do the illustrations for the next 2 Dante books or Splash, but all 3 are written. And so I need to get that point, but my focus this year is more the adult fiction than the children's fiction. So I'm just not paying much attention to that right now,
Sure, of course.
And I just said, I'll just leave it there. It'll be all right. I'll leave it there. It doesn't sell much. It'll be fine. It never did before. It's a cute story, by the way, the Dante story, because it's about a ferret in a pet store and he's trying to escape. Because he keeps seeing his friends disappear. Like they come in, the gatekeepers are the people that work there. They keep coming in and taking his friends away. And he's like, where are my friends going? And so he decides he's going to escape. And so the question is, does he find his friends or does he find something more? his forever family. That's what Dante's about. And so the next, I know, right? It's a cute little ferret. Oh my God, he's so cute. I used to have ferrets. I love ferrets. And so the next 2 books, he's now with his, this other person. And so he's living in the country and he's going he's exploring his new environment and the critters that he meets when he does that. And his best friend is Rufus, a dog named Rufus. Sort of like a yellow lab. Yeah. So, they're cute stories and they have a lesson in them. And then I don't know if I mentioned this before in some of our discussions. The 3rd book introduces the readers to some coyotes, because there's a whole other series called the Coyote Wars that I've been writing for years that has these characters. So you could be a reader of Dante and start to grow and develop and then move into the Coyote Wars, which is middle grade fiction, and start reading about Coyote Wars. And those characters are familiar because they're in the 3rd book of Dante. So it's let it grow. Yeah, let it grow with the readers.
Coyote Wars? That's what it's called?
Coyote Wars.
Wow.
Coyote Wars. And that one, I've been working on that for several years off and on. And it's just been that's been a challenging one to write and really get it right. I mean, something's just off, which is why I haven't published it yet. Something's just off. And I've revised, I've edited, I've done it several times. I've had other people read it and give me feedback, and yeah, it still needs work. That's why it's not out. It just still needs work. But that's what I think of when I write the children's books and my middle grade. I try and make there's a connection so that the reader can go from here to up to another character. So even Desiree Jackson, I have a middle grade series for her. And I have a middle grade series I started called Archer Jackson and the Compass Wars. Archer Jackson is actually related to Desiree Jackson. So in the Archer Jackson and the Compass Wars story, Desiree Jackson is there. And she's in there. She's a cousin of his. And it all makes sense from that takes place years down the road, like 2063 or something, right? But she's older, clearly, in that, but she's in that story. And then in that story, because it's time travel, they actually go back in time and meet the younger Desiree Jackson as she's a middle grade kid, and they meet her, and there's and it all makes sense. It actually all flows and makes sense, which is amazing. I mean, quite frankly, that I was able to do this, but it all makes sense. And that way you could read Archer Jackson, the Compass Wars, learn about Desiree Jackson and go, I wonder if there's more about her. And then you see the middle grade series that stars her. And then if you wanted to read anything about her as an adult, you've got the Deadly Sin series and Hush and North Downing, and it just goes on. But I made everything connect.
It's the Coreyverse.
It's all connected. It's all connected. We are all connected. I just wanted to prove the point.
Awesome.
All connected. So there's a lot of other writing going on that I do, and besides what I talk about here. There's a lot of stuff, and I put things on hold when I know that I've got to work on something else instead. And so I've been working on the adult stuff because I know I can't work on the other stuff right now. So that's where it's at. But it's all connected. It makes sense in the end. So there you go.
So what's your big project this week? What's your?
I don't know. And part of the reason is because this week, as I said, the kids are homesick right now, and they only actually had 2.5 days of school this week anyway. So tomorrow they'll have school and it's a half day, and then they're out for 2 days. And so I guess we'll be seeing what I can get accomplished in that time frame. I need to put together the podcast for next week for Womanly Art. I think I'm going to finally get that one done on willpower. I've been saying I was going to do it, but I think I'm going to do that for this episode is be willpower, because that's an awesome thing to talk about and learn about. So I'll be doing that. I know. I have not gone back and looked at last week. We were talking about the email stuff again, and the auto stuff, auto responders. I haven't gone back and tweaked those yet, and I have notes and stuff on what I want to do, but I haven't had a chance to go back and make some tweaks, and so I want to do that. I don't have any Facebook ads running right now, so I may play with that again, or maybe boost that post again, because I haven't looked at my stats since I haven't had an ad running. I haven't looked at my stats again to see what may or may not be happening with that. So I want to see it's fun to see the connections, that I did this and this happened is kind of cool. I can see that. So that's kind of fun. But then I did take my North Downing is with my editor right now. And so as soon as he can get back with something for me to work on, I'll be doing more revisions on that to get that out and done because I want it out by April 4th. So that's what's going on.
Excellent.
That's my focus right now. I'm going to be formatting, and I'm going to be in formatting hell in a little while because I've got to finish Deadly Sins 3.
What does that mean? Formatting hell?
I don't like to format, even with my templates and stuff like that. I don't like to format. It's my least favorite thing to do when it comes to the writing and the authorship life. I don't like to do that, but it's something I can do, and the templates do make it easier. It's one of those detailed, tedious things that you're well aware of I don't like.
True. So what are the templates? What are the templates that you're using? I remember you told me you bought them from the Book Designer.
I use the Book Designer templates that I bought, and like I said, they're super simple. I mean, it's just a copy paste for the most part. I mean, there's some things that you have to do to make sure everything is flowing, and then the hyperlinks and all that. It really comes down to it's tedious and time consuming, and I don't like it. That's essentially what it goes down to.
And those are templates for what? KDP?
They're templates. You can get templates from his site for print and for ebook. And so they're really super simple to use. And you can get a single license, or you can get more than that so that you can use them repeatedly. And then all I have to do is make a few tweaks, and I can upload. I upload and do print and ebook basically around the same time. And the reason I do print book, in case I haven't mentioned this in the past to anybody, the reason is because I learned that if I have a book on pre-order on Amazon, I can't get any reviews for the book. That's a rule on Amazon if it's on pre-order. But if you have a print version available of your book, you can get reviews on the print version. And then when the ebook goes live, the two connect. And so now the people will see the reviews that were coming in for the print version of the book. So that's one argument for having a print version of your book. If you've got your book as an ebook and it's in a pre-order status and you're trying to get reviews before it goes, officially live, that would be why to do it. And so I do print versions for the books primarily for that reason. And it doesn't cost me anything to do it, so why not? Time, but other than that, it's no big deal.
So the format, the template that you have is for. It's for both. You have ebook and print formats?
I can use it for both. And I don't remember if I bought it specifically for that, but I can do it for both. So I just do whatever tweaking I need to do to make sure that I've got it for both.
Is it a Word template? Like, what is the template?
It's in Word. It's in Word. But they have it. I think they have templates in another format, or not format, another program, maybe InDesign or something. They've got it in something else now. So you just have to look. They've got a lot of, over at Book Design Templates, they have a lot of different things that you can look at. They even have one for children's books, a template you can use for that.
It's interesting. I'm wondering, since I'm doing that right now as well, I'm wondering if I don't know, if I want to try to sort of slog through the Word formatting stuff myself. I don't know. I don't know. I guess I got to look and see what it is that they're doing for you.
If you're really good at that, if you're really good at Word already and creating your own templates and formatting all that, then why would you bother, But if you're someone like me who it's a tedious, annoying task that you don't want to learn, then you would go and do this, and it's not expensive. You know me, I don't spend a lot of money on this stuff, so it's not expensive, So it was like, I think $37 or something. I don't even remember. I shouldn't even quote that. But it was not expensive for me to get what I needed and then be able to use it. There's a gnat, sorry, flying around. Get to use it for whatever project, So because I don't want to learn that stuff. Formatting is tedious and annoying to me, and it always has been. So I don't want to learn that. I just want to be able to copy paste, do as little as possible, and have it look pretty.
Sure,
and then move on. That's what I want to do. So, But if you're someone who likes to dabble in that stuff, you're probably also someone who likes to do your own covers and can do that well. I'm not. So. Go have fun and do that. That falls squarely in a 20% activity that I don't want to do. So I'm not going to spend time doing it.
Sure. Well, it also relates back to the question of there's that acronym WIBBOW. Would I be better off writing? I see that all the time. In a lot of the groups. This is something I could do, but would I be better off writing as opposed to doing that? And possibly spending money or something like that. And that, I think for an indie author such as ourselves, I think you need to kind of always weigh that. always put that whatever activity it is that's related to the business. Would you be better off writing or doing this thing that you're doing? I think is a really good question. It's a really valid question. So,
and it's what I do on a regular basis now. And so most of the time it falls into, I'm going to be writing, so I'm either writing, doing my podcast stuff, but like the formatting, no, make it easy, get it done and move on. I don't hire anybody to do it because I can do that. Now that I got the template, there's no point in hiring somebody to do it. But no, I usually will err on the side of I need to either be writing or editing or revising something because I need more work out there because it helps with discoverability. And I know, it's interesting because that kind of goes against one of the things that one of the reasons Nick Stephenson got into what he's doing now and creating his class for essentially, let's call it visibility and get your first 10,000 readers and all that jazz. I loved listening to it and watching, he did all the free stuff before he made the stuff available as a paid course or whatever. But he was trying to figure out a way to get discovered and sell the books, the existing stuff he had without having to write more books. Because I don't know that he has that many books out. Maybe 6. I don't know. It's not a tremendous amount, but he was trying to make more of a living off of that sort of thing. And at the time that I found him, I didn't have Hush wasn't out yet. And I think I had Deadly Sins 1 and 2 out. So not as many books yet. But I still think, this is where I don't agree with him, I still think you need to write more books. I still think that needs to happen. I don't think it's realistic to have a 6 or 5 or whatever books and expect that's going to make, you're going to make a living off that now. I personally don't think that's realistic. Maybe it's realistic for some other people. Maybe it was for him. I don't know. But I do know that he created a course that costs over $500 to take, and that's where he's generating income to a certain degree. So it's not just from the books; it's from this course that he's created.
And there's an awful lot of writers who are doing the same thing. I mean, if you look at it, Brian Cohen has his list, his TED stuff, and he's got tons of nonfiction writing prompt books out there. I mean, I looked at Brian Cohen's catalog. He probably has 20 books out there, maybe even more, if you factor in his nonfiction stuff, which is all the writing prompts and the whole TED series and things like that. And Brian launched a class. Mark Dawson's constantly writing, huge hit thrillers. His whole I can't think of the name of the guy. Anyway, whatever. His character, Mark Dawson's character. He writes a lot of hit thrillers, but he's doing the Facebook advertising class. Nick Stephenson,
But one of the differences, though, that I see is I think Mark Dawson was actually able to make a living off of his books at that point because he was already over 20 books or something. So he had a good solid base in books, and then started going, how can I make more from this? Oh, Facebook ads. Let me try that. That was my take on that. He had a bigger base than some of these other people were mentioning, by the way, in terms of authorship. Fiction, not nonfiction, fiction author base. So I'm still thinking you need a few more books under your belt that are so that you can create your funnels and you can, move people where you want them to go.
Yeah,
if you
for
just
sure.
have one book, it's too hard to do that. If you have 2 books, it's too hard. If you have books in different genre, that's hard. And that's where I was. So I had, my first book was nonfiction. My second book was Deadly Sins 1, short stories, also hard to sell, by the way. Dante, children's book. Deadly Sins 2, also short stories, challenging to move. And then I combined Deadly Sins and Deadly Sins 2 to make Deadly Sins Complete as a print version and an ebook. But again, short story genre, challenging to sell. If it had been a novella where it was just all one storyline and 15 to 25,000 words, that'd be a little bit easier. But these are literally short stories within one book, a little bit more challenging. But when you don't have a bunch of books in one genre, I think it just makes it a little more challenging to get your headway, to get going and sell and stuff. And so that's another reason why I've been focused on the adult fiction, is because I wanted to build that list so I can get a better footing. And then I can go back and do the children's stuff that I was talking about, because children's books are notoriously hard to sell in an ebook form for sure. but they're notoriously challenging to actually get moving and sell a lot. So that's my focus.
Yeah, children's books they're so tough. I mean, they're so expensive. I mean, that's one of the things that I really noticed was when my kids were little enough to, to want a children's book or to get value out of a children's book, they were super expensive because they're illustrated. They're these beautiful, things. And it's kind of like, I don't want to spend $30 on a book that my kid's going to put in his mouth, and chew on and step on and all the rest of that. So, and it's also hard to know if with a children's book, if it is going to have that sort of timeless, repetitive quality that the kid wants to read over and over and over again. Goodnight Moon, there's something about Goodnight Moon. You can read it every single day, several times a day, and the kid doesn't get tired of it. They never get tired of Goodnight Moon. So that's an incredibly valuable thing because it's like, the kid asks for that book, they want to read it. You can sit down and read it over and over again. But I can think of other books that I thought, ooh, this is a really charming premise, or this is, the art on this is really adorable. And the kid read it one time and then ask them if they want to read it again. Nah, no, I'm good. I got that. I'm done with that. Like,
they're not, from a CreateSpace perspective now, the books aren't too terrible. I mean, in terms of expense from an author perspective, it's not that costly for me to create the ebook. The illustrations cost me the money, so I have to pay the illustrator to do the illustrations, and that can get pricey, to do that sort of thing. So that's another reason why it's on hold right now, is because I know that even though I have a friend who's an illustrator who will work a deal with me, it's still going to be expensive to do the illustrations for the books. And so I just have to wait it out a little bit. But I also know that they sell, even for, this, you're a parent, the print versions sell better than the ebook version. Mm-hmm. I don't buy children's ebooks for my children. I don't. No. I buy physical books for my children, and they want to hold the book. And this isn't even different for middle grade at this point. My son is a middle grade student. He would rather have the physical book to read than the ebook. And he has a Kindle, but he doesn't like to read on the Kindle, not yet. He will eventually, but he's not there yet. So he still likes the physical book. So being able to create the physical book is a big deal. But the actual cost of it, the biggest cost for me are the illustrations. That's the biggest expense to do it. And then when I get the book, like Dante sells for $12. That's how much that book is, the physical book. But it's available in ebook too. I mean, I made it available both ways.
I don't know. I don't know what, well, I have some theories as to what it is, but you're absolutely right. Kids don't like ebooks. Kids like tactile books. My youngest daughter, my 10-year-old, is a voracious reader. She reads all the time. She's constantly consuming books, not at all interested in books in e-reader format. She wants the physical book. She wants the actual thing that she can put her hands on, and it's fascinating because it would be so much cheaper for me to buy her anything she wants on Kindle,
Right?
You're like, baby, can I get you this on Kindle? No, thank you. No, I don't want that. She really, really wants the next book in the series, but she doesn't want it on e-format. And I don't know, there's something really telling about that. There's something interesting about just the quality of a physical book. It's an artifact. It's an object. There's something about the power of a physical book that, for kids and middle grade readers and stuff like that, it just that's what they want. And
it's the interesting thing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it makes it challenging for indies like us because you want to find a way to put it into their hands, advertise to them and put it into their hands, and that's challenging.
I think the other thing that I find really interesting about it, though, is that, we've got these kids, they've got all this technology around them, my kids included. I mean, they've got a Kindle, they've got the little gaming thing, they've got their computers, but they don't want to read on any of them. They want to have the actual book. And I find that really interesting. Some people are so worried. There's too much technology with these kids. Their heads are always in no. When they want to read the actual book. So get them the physical book. from a selling perspective, I mean, I think you have to get a little more creative maybe for those physical books. I mean, I sell it at, you can sell it at an art fair, you could sell it at a craft fair, you could sell it a holiday fair, and and you can move a lot of books that way, people. Just in case you're curious, you can move a lot of books by doing those things. And that's what I do. That's when I get print books, is when I know I've got an event I can go to, because I know they're going to sell. And then I just, boom, they're out the door. And then I go and order more when I know I have another event coming up. And so that's how I handle the physical print version of, whether it's adult or not. That's how I do that. I don't have print versions of Hush here with me right now. And I won't unless I know I have somewhere to sell them. There's no point in that. If somebody wants a free copy of Hush, I'll give you a free copy. It's going to be an e-copy of Hush. It won't be a print version of Hush. That's how I can control costs, but I also know when I can sell stuff. So that's how you sell those books, you know, and you have to know that. And I have nieces who read constantly, and they're, one is just turned 21. The other one is 16. And then the one that is, they're all those two are readers. The next one in line, there's 5 of them. The next one is like 14, 15, and she reads constantly. They all read physical books. None of them read ebooks. That's not what they do. Yeah. And that's up to age 21 that they're not reading ebooks. Yeah. So, these are things that you have to keep in mind and know, you're going to need to do a print version, but it doesn't cost you any money to do it. So just do one, and then be careful about how you're going to sell them. If you're going to an event, then order some copies, but don't order like 200 copies.
How many do you order?
The last event, the December event I did, I think I ordered maybe 20 to 25 copies of Hush, maybe. And then I had copies of My Life in Black and White that I already had. So I already had those. I already had copies of Dante. I think I had to order some copies of Deadly Sins, but I kept it at low. I sold everything.
Sold them all.
I sold everything. So it was one of those, I'm just going to sell everything. So, but you have to, and there were, I could have not sold out of things like that because I had a couple different books, but no, I mean, 10 to 20 copies maybe of a book at an event like that. If it's your only book, maybe more, but I was doing 4 or 5 books at that event. And so I wanted to make sure I had enough of whatever, but
sure.
I don't do it for author fairs. I will not order physical books for an author fair because I've done a couple author fairs now and didn't sell anything at the author fairs.
Really?
And, nothing.
Why? Just because there's too much, there's too many choices? You think people are...
I don't think that those author fairs that I attended were well attended enough by the community at large of people who would buy books. And I've done 2 author fairs. Both were in libraries. One was a primary main library in Omaha, and it was fairly well attended, but not a lot of sales happening. And a lot of authors looking at other authors' stuff. That's why I specifically said craft fair, because there's not as many authors that are doing it. A holiday fair, because there's not as many authors doing it. At the holiday fair that I was at, it's one I go to every year for my tea business, and I can sell whatever I want at that one, which is different than during the regular tea season. In the markets, I can only sell my teas in my space. But at the holiday fair, they let me sell whatever I want. So I take my books. This year was the first year another author set up at the thing that I remember. And it actually was Concierge Marketing, and they represent a whole bunch of authors. And so they had a booth with all the different books and things like that. And then there was me. So there were the 2 of us, and then all these other vendors who aren't selling that stuff. So that's what you have to think about, is who else is there selling stuff, that's in your area, that's in your same, what you're producing, essentially. Yeah, of course. So craft fair, holiday fair, things like that can be really, an art fair can be really good for you. If you've got, like, I've got a very graphic novel sort of cover for Deadly Sins, and Hush is a really cool cover and all that. So I could go to an art fair with that, and I could have postcards made of these cover images if I wanted to, as either giveaways or things to sell that were framed or whatever. I could get really creative with that, you know, and sell those. Yeah. So think outside the box.
Think outside the box, people. Come on. When
trying to sell, I'm not saying go to Burger King and sell from there, though, depending on what you have, it could work. You know, it could work. So that's what I would recommend. Not a ton, just and not what you really reasonably think you'd be able to sell at an event, because
Awesome.
people want that. I will say this, and then we should probably wrap up. The second author fair I went to, there was a person there who didn't have any physical copies of his book. He had like some chapters or something printed out. And I thought that was an interesting approach, though I probably, if I were going to do that, I'd probably make it look a little more professional if I were going to do something like that, to just give to people. But he also didn't have anything else there. So he didn't have any sort of like image of a cover, or it was just sort of boring, where there was no presentation, you know?
Yeah.
So if you're going to do something like that, where you don't want to have the physical books and you're doing an author fair, at least take the time to do some other marketing pieces so you have something to give to people, because they do want something. If they're not buying, they still want something from you. So have something there would be my suggestion.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you always got to put a good professional foot forward, I think. You know, you want to, I mean, you want to look comparable with the best stuff that's out there. If you want people to take you seriously, you've got to look comparable to, you know, maybe not as good as Stephen King's latest cover or something like that, but still strong, you know, something that looks professional and, you know, representative of good work. And it's critical. It's very important. Yeah.
You know, and people tell you, when you listen to some of the experts, you know, they're constantly saying, you need to write a good book. You need an excellent cover. Okay, but what does that mean? Because these things are fairly subjective. So let me throw out my 2 cents. The cover thing, go to your genre and look to see what's there in the stuff that's selling, right? So me going to look at short stories in mystery thriller category to see what these covers look like is what I needed to do to figure out how to do this DS3 cover, because it was making it way too complicated and it would have confused people. And it would not have it didn't look right. I will say that. I mean, the initial cover, I was like, oh, that is wrong. That's just wrong. You know, that you have to do that research. You have to be willing to go do that research and be honest. You know, if you've got a cover that you're doing yourself, show it to other people and look at their reaction. Don't listen to the reaction. Look at their reaction to the cover.
Whoa. Yeah. Okay. Here's my advice about that. Unless you're already doing professional cover design, don't do your own cover. Please don't.
No, right?
Please don't do your own cover. There's no way that you're going to get a result that is as sophisticated as an actual graphic designer. It's always going to look not as good. So please don't. Just don't.
Always look like that. I mean, it's true. I mean, and there's some people. I've met some people who have done their own cover, and I went, "That's a pretty cool cover." But the majority, no. And I've talked with a lot of authors from Backwards Writer from doing that show. I can think of one person who I looked at the cover and I knew he did it, and I went, "That's a freaking awesome cover," and it was really good. But he has the background to do that sort of thing, and not everybody has that. So just bite the bullet. It doesn't cost that much to hire someone to do a cover for you. And that is something worth doing. That's worth spending the money on right there. And do your research to find out what the covers should look like. My graphic designer doesn't know what the covers in my genre should look like. I have to tell him what they need to look like. That's not in his wheelhouse. So I'm trying to feed him information, and he's trying to follow my direction. And sometimes we miss each other, you know, that's just the way it works. But it's better to hire somebody. And then the write the good book thing. Yeah, that's pretty subjective. But the overall thing is, don't make a ton of mistakes. You know, take the time to read line by line in your story, and make sure, you know, if you're not going to hire an editor, make sure you're really, really good at editing, which I haven't met very many people that are like that, quite frankly, that can edit their stuff that well. You know, my view is you still need some sort of editor to look everything over for you, and do it maybe once or twice.
Yeah, I mean, I
wouldn't do a developmental editor. That's not me. I wouldn't do that. I don't need help with that. But for all the other editing, yeah, I have someone to do that. I don't do that.
I think spending the money on a good copy editor is a good idea if you can afford it. If not, I guess I would say that I think that people are forgiving or willing to be forgiving as long as you say, there's not a lot of really glaring errors. Yeah. I've read a few series lately that have been interesting, because when you're coming to a work like a book or a movie or comic book or even a video game, you as a consumer, you want to like the product. You've already you're invested. You're saying, okay, I'm going to consume this bit of entertainment. And so I've read a few indie books where there have been a few mistakes, but not more than I could forgive overall, and I still enjoyed the story enough to carry me to the next book. So, if it's really badly written, if it's really badly formatted, if it's, if there are obvious glaring misspellings or glaring errors, you're not going to get a lot of forgiveness from me or really from anyone. But you can, if there's just a couple, here and there, maybe like, ooh, that didn't really work out that well or whatever. If the narrative is good, if the story concept is strong, and you actually are a compelling writer, you can carry people past a few mistakes. You don't necessarily have to be super careful, as careful about editing. That said, by all means, get an editor. And the other thing that's interesting about those indie series is I would read the first book and think, yeah, okay, this is not too bad. I'd read the next one and I'd see it get better. I mean, I'd see the person getting better. I'd see them, at one point I literally saw the point where the writer invested in an editor because the polish level on the writing sort of went way up. Yeah. I was still enjoying the character, still enjoying the premise. I was like, yeah, I'm into this world. It's cool. I'm in. And then all of a sudden I really saw the polish level jump. And I was like, oh, they hired an editor. Good for them. Book 3, suddenly it's like, woo.
And, but we mentioned that a couple weeks ago. I mentioned a guy who he didn't know what to do in this indie author world. And he just started putting his stuff out there, and he was getting slammed because his editing was so bad because he didn't hire an editor, but he had a following. He had an audience. They liked the story. And so they were forgiving. It's a risk, but they were forgiving. And then he did actually hire an editor because he realized he needed one. But there's differences. A developmental editor can be very expensive. And so you have to decide, do you really need a developmental editor? But when it comes to the copy and making sure that you haven't missed, you've got the right word in there, the spelling is correct, the grammar is right, that sort of stuff, I have somebody do that in a heartbeat because I don't want to mess that up. I don't want to, I'm learning to edit and become a better editor by working with an editor, actually. And so when he's editing stuff and we go back and forth and I ask questions, and I'll go and say, like, wait a minute, why did you do it this way? And I'll go research it and then we'll debate about it. So I'm becoming a stronger editor. It's helping me a lot to do this. Now I am fortunate. I've mentioned before, my father is an editor. So that's who I use. Very fortunate in that regard.
Got the hookup right there.
I have the hookup. He is available to edit for other people, but he will charge you for editing. I don't know how much. I've never asked, but he will charge you for editing. He happens to like vampires. Huh?
I said you should ask him. You should find out. We could publicize his editorial services. I think
he hasn't decided. He doesn't really know how much he would charge for it. I've mentioned it a few times. But he does, for those interested, get in touch with me. He does like to read vampire stuff. He loves Westerns. He is a writer. He likes to write. So he's a writer, a reader, editor. That's his thing. He's done communications for years. He was a reporter. That was he's a broadcast journalist. That's how he started. And so he's been in communications for a long time, copy edit, all that stuff.
Well, I need a fiction editor, so I might reach out to him. I'm not kidding. I'm serious.
Well, you can let me know, and then I'll give you his information. He's, I like working with him. He's done my editing and all that. I mean, ever since I was very young, because I've always written. And so when I had papers and things like that, we'd go back and forth on papers, and he helped me more with developmental stuff back then because I needed a lot more help with that. Now it's like, no, I think I know where I want to go with this, and I'll do it. And if I run into a glitch like North Downing, I just finished reading through it so I could do my first revisions and then give it to him. And I'm reading through this going, wait, what did I do here? And so when I give it to him, I say to him, okay, you're going to get to a section that you really need to pay attention to. and then he will, so he'll massage something in a section. Like, yeah, that needed work. And I just wasn't there to do it. So please help me.
Yeah, that's cool.
So he's good. He's good like that. He's good to work with from that perspective.
That's fun.
But yeah, if you need an editor, let me know. You can check him out and see if he works for you, if he'll work for you. You need it compatible with your editor. That's important too.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's actually interesting. I think we talked about this once before. The person that did my nonfiction stuff, like, I don't want to go back and forth with an editor about changes. What I'm really looking for is an editor to come in and kind of polish off the rough edges. And when I handed this woman, my manuscript, as far as I was concerned, at that point I was done. Like, I'm out. I don't want to go back in there and debate this change or discuss that change or, argue about it. I mean, I'm like, just make it better, whatever. And she gave it back. She's like, well, I moved some pieces around and, how do you feel about that? I'm like, I feel like it's done. Let's go. Let's pull the trigger. Like, it's great. I did my part. I put the ideas out there. You polish off the rough edges. Now, I mean, that said, I read her stuff and I let my wife read it because, of course, my wife is my first reader always. And I said, what do you think about this? And she goes, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell what she did, but it just seems a little smoother. And I'm like, yep, sold. Like, that's what I want. And anyway, that was kind of ideal because the idea of kind of, I don't know, I guess I'm just not that precious about the words. I am precious about the story. There are stories that I want to tell, but I'm not that precious about, you use the word who and instead of whom, or, this turn of phrase maybe isn't quite as apt as it could be. I'm like, yeah, well, do you understand what I'm talking about? All right, let's go. So I don't know. I may not be. It's just weird.
That's the stuff you communicate with an editor, though. So because it sounds like you're saying, I don't really need help with the developmental stuff. I just want to. It's like me. You've got the story. I'm going to tell the story. Make it sound better, please, in this section. And you definitely have to have the person who's there to help with, the grammar stuff and all of that. But that to me is stuff you communicate with an editor, and so and they know what the expectations are. When I dropped off the stuff with my father just the other day, he said, and he does this to me every time. He says, "So what is it that you want me to do?" And I'm like, "I know, do your editing thing. Just do what you do as an editor." But this is the same conversation we have every time I give him something. What do you want me to do? Because he wants to make sure we're on the same page expectation wise, and that's wise. I'm not looking for him to rewrite the story. I'm looking for him to just grammar, spelling. Was this awkward here? And if I absolutely already flagged something, help me correct something that I know is an issue that I haven't been able to work through yet. And then we go through that, which is sort of a developmental edit right there, but it doesn't happen for the whole thing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the lines blur, I think a copy editor blurs into a development editor. I think a proofreader can blur into a copy editor. I mean, it's just, let's face it, if you're only ever just going to proofread something for spelling, I don't know, whatever. I never worked with anybody like that. I suppose there are those people out there whose only job is to correct spelling, but if you see something that was glaring, grammatical error, it's hard for me to imagine that a proofreader would just be like, oh, well, I don't care.
But there are people, you have different types of editors. And so some people, what they do is a developmental edit, and you need to pay them for a developmental edit. And then if you want them to do the copyright type edit, copy reader type edit, that's a different edit. They're looking for something different when they do it. And proofreading, they're looking for something different when they do it. And so, it's kind of like that group, Books Go Social, when they started the thing for writers, you can send your manuscript in if you're part of Books Go Social, and 10 of us will proofread it for you, because basically it's done. You've done everything else. You're just trying to do the final, did I miss anything sort of stuff. That's, I'm just proofreading. I'm just going through and going, okay, here's all I'm looking for. And I am totally ignoring the story when I do that for people. I mean, I'm just going, okay, I think you meant this word. I think this was wrong. I think, try this word here, because I think that's what you meant. It's that sort of stuff. I think it was it's, not it's,
You're still part of the Books Go Social thing?
No, I haven't been really active with it. No, but that is one feature that I liked. about that, was being able to do that. So I mean, I still could, because I paid for it for a year. So I could take North Downing and take that to the group and have 10 people look over that for me when it's ready to have that sort of final, did I miss anything? Did my editor miss anything? Did I, it's that sort of thing. And they each take a handful of pages and get through the whole thing. And it's pretty efficient, so I did that for other people 2 or 3 times, and it's, and it's quick. It's 10 pages and I'm done.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So those sorts of things are all different. And that's what everybody needs to know. There's different types of editing, and they all charge different prices for those types of editing. It's not one full package, which is why with my father, I'm saying he doesn't know what he would charge, is because he hasn't ferreted out the different types of editing he would want to do and then charge for. And so I think that's where
with the editor that I work with, I mean, we kind of went through a test process. I sent her some material, and then she sent it back edited and said, what do you think about this? Because I think for an editor, it's also really important to understand, what are you working with? Where do you have to start? Some writers' stuff is pretty rough, and some is much more polished. And I think that's some kind of an important place. If you're going to figure out kind of what you're going to charge for editing, you got to know how far you're going to have to travel. I think is a good place to start. So, All right. Well, listen, I need to go. I got to go run some errands.
I have to do an interview in a little bit.
Awesome. Who are you interviewing today?
I am interviewing a woman named Beth, who started a company called Pretty Loaded. It has to do with self-defense training, specifically for women and children. Really interesting stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. They have a great website. I think it's prettyloaded.org. I think it's not .com, but you can check that out. But some great videos, PSA type videos that they put out over there. So yeah, I'll be talking to her. And I'm using Zencastr for the first time, so I'm excited.
Very cool.
So I'll report on that next week.
Yeah, please do. I can't wait to hear about Zencastr. Awesome.
Have a great week. Get everything done. Hopefully your brother-in-law's okay.
Yes, I will bring you a full report.
All righty. See you later.
Thanks, Corey.